guys, don't you just love this month's card club? I love these cards. I love this set. It's brand new out of the holiday catalog, which was released on September 1st. It's called Painted Harvest, and it's a really fun set for the fall. So we're going to use that set today to make the card club cards. And if you're not familiar with my card club, what it is you just need to make a $32 pre-tax, pre-shipping order at my store. You can order whatever you would like. You also need to use this month's current host code, which is down below at the bottom of this video. You also need to reside within the U.S. I cannot mail outside the U.S. And you need to provide me with your contact information so I have a way to mail you out your package. If you do place an order with me and it's $150 or more, do not use my host code. You will get your own, and you still will get the goodies mailed to you from me. And if you make a qualifying purchase for 6 months in a row, you will automatically qualify for a free current stamp set valued at $25 or less from me. So what I'll do is I will contact you via mail or email and let you know once you qualify, and then you can pick out a stamp set out of one of the current catalogs. And that's it to the card club. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. What you're going to get in the mail from me when you qualify is a packet with the materials to make the 3 cards featured in this video. The only things you will not get are the stamped images or any of the adhesives required to make it. You will also get a PDF file, and it will list all the materials used, and it will list the video link to make the cards with. So we're going to go ahead and get started on the first card. So your cards will be in order from the first, second to third. So we're just going to pull out the first card and all the materials we need for that, and we're going to get started on that card. Now this card here, we're using Old Olive card base, and this is an A2 card. So A2 is measured 5.5 by 4 1/4. And then you're also going to get a piece of the watercolor paper, and this here is measured at 5 1/4 by 3. You also will get 2 pieces of crumb cake ribbon to go along with this card. So the colors that we're using on this card, there are 6 different colors. So we're using crumb cake, crushed curry, and tangerine tango. And we also are going to use basic black, garden green, and wild wasabi to make this. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So we're just going to take our Old Olive card base and we're going to fold it at the crease, and then just use your bone folder to kind of give it that nice crease. And then we're just going to set that aside. Now with this technique I'm using the spritzers through Stampin' Up! And I'm going to use, in your stamp set, there is, with the photopolymer stamps, you get a plastic piece that covers the tops of your stamps. That piece right there, we're actually going to use this piece to create a background on the watercolor paper. So you're going to take that plastic piece off, and you're going to make sure you have a scrap piece of paper down. You're going to take your 2 colors, crushed curry and tangerine tango. And what I did was I just took half of the plastic and just stamped down the crushed curry. And then on the other side, I took the tangerine tango and I just stamped that down on the other side of the paper, and it is a little messy. So once you have them stamped down, the next thing you're going to do is take your spritzer and just spritz water on top like so. Get it nice and wet there, and then I kind of almost blended them in a bit at the center. I think I just want a little bit more water on there. because I didn't want to get that line where the colors ended. So you just want to kind of pick it up a little and kind of blend it in a little, just like so. And then once you get it where you think you like the colors, the mixture, then just take your watercolor piece of paper and just lay it right over the top of that and just press down. Don't worry about this side getting messy. You're not going to use this side anyways. And if you don't want the colors as dark, don't put as much ink on. It's up to you how you want the colors on your watercolor paper. So your paper's going to look something like that. So you're going to get that nice blend of the colors, and I'm just going to kind of let it drip down because I don't want the fine colors there. And then you can also take a tissue if you'd like and kind of dab it off a little bit. So what we're going to do is, once you get your paper the way you like it, you can see that part of it is the crushed curry, part of it is the tangerine tango, and then there's kind of like a blend in there. So real pretty color. So we're going to set that aside and let that dry, or you can take that and use your heat embossing tool and dry it that way. And then we're going to do some stamping on it. So once you have that dried, we're going to go ahead and do some stamping on it. And if you didn't want to, as you can see, I got a little messy. If you didn't want to get that messy, you could always just use your aqua painters on that with your inks. You could do blender pens. You could do a bunch of different things. I just liked the way it looked when I used the plastic, because you will get a different look with the different techniques you use. So what you're going to do is you're going to take in this stamp set there. This is two-step stamping. So you're going to take the two pieces of the sunflower, and it's going to have a watercolor look effect to it. So when you stamp it down, you're going to see that some parts are going to stamp darker and some are going to stamp lighter. That's the way the stamp is designed. So we're going to take this base of the sunflower first, and we're going to stamp that down in crushed curry. And we're going to stamp it right in the middle watercolor paper here. And I've got my foam mat down just because these are photopolymer stamps, and I want to make sure I get a good impression. So it's going to be very light. You'll see in there it's very light. That's okay, because we're going to take next our tangerine tango, and we're going to stamp the next portion of the sunflower, which is the top portion, and we're going to go ahead and stamp that down right on top. And then you'll see it's kind of starting to become vivid. You'll take your bottom layer again, stamp that out in the crushed curry, and we're just going to stamp that right over top of that again. And you don't have to line it up. There's no method here. You just kind of stamp it on top. The petals all kind of fit together and look nice. And then you'll see it actually made it darker with the yellow. So that's it for the stamping of the sunflower. Next you're gonna take crumb cake, and we're gonna take and stamp out the center with crumb cake. Just kind of line it up in the center there. And there's your sunflower. Then the next thing we're going to do is stamp out the fern leaves on here. You're going to have, again, two steps. You're going to have the bottom portion and then the top portion there, which this one here is the bottom, the more the one that's filled in, and then the top one is more of the leaf design on it. So we're just going to go ahead and use Wild Wasabi and Garden Green. So the Wild Wasabi is going to be for your base leaf. And I just stamped this randomly around this sunflower. And then you're going to take your Garden Green and you're going to use the top portion of the stamp, the leaf, the more defined leaf portion. And we're going to just stamp on top of the ferns, the base ferns that you did. So just kind of stamp on top. They don't have to be perfect. It gives it a little bit more dimension. It'll look something like that. Very pretty. So the next thing we're going to stamp is the sentiment on here. And I just took a baby wipe. I had some ink on top of my foam pad. So I just took a baby wipe and got that off of there so I don't get any more ink where I don't want it. So I'm just going to stamp out the sentiment, I'm thankful for you, in basic black. And you decide where you want it. I think I'm just going to put it right down here in this corner. There's no wrong place where to put it. And it will look like this. So now we're just going to go ahead and finish up this card. So we're just going to bring in our old olive card base and our 2 pieces of ribbon. Now the first thing we're going to do before we attach this to our card base is we're going to put this ribbon around your watercolor paper. So what I like to do is I like to use fast fuse or anything that's got a lot of strength to your adhesive. So I don't like to use snail adhesive if I'm going to glue the ribbon on. I want to make sure it holds securely. So I do prefer the fast fuse. So you're just going to kind of look to see where you want it on the front of this card here, and then just wrap around the back ends of the ribbon. Just make sure you're even. And then that'll stick nicely to your snail adhesive back there. So now we're just going to go ahead and put some fast fuse. Again, because this is watercolor paper, I want to make sure that it stays firmly down. So I will use fast fuse. You could also use your liquid Tombow mono glue if you wanted to. I would not use snail adhesive. You want to make sure you have a strong adhesive on there. So you're just going to kind of center this in the middle of your card base. And then your final piece of ribbon, I just took and slipped it underneath and just kind of made a knot with it. Just like that. And then I just took a small pair of scissors and just trimmed a little triangle at the bottom. You could also cut the ribbon at an angle. You don't have to do the triangle. What I need to do is get a pair of the scissor snips through Stampin' Up. These scissors are not the greatest. So that's card number 1 in the card club. I'm just noticing I put this on really crooked, so make sure when you put yours on you don't put it on as crooked as I did, but oh well, they can tell it's homemade. So now we're going to move on to card number 2. So this card is an A-frame card. It still measures as an A2 card, 5.5 by 4 1/4. Instead of cutting your paper in half down the 11 mark, you turn your paper and cut it in half at 4 1/4 mark. So you'll get your A-frame card. So you just want to go ahead and we're going to just fold your A-frame in half at the crease, and then you're going to take your bone folder and just make sure you give it a nice good crease. And then we're going to set this aside. So you're going to have a little packet with little leaves in here. This is from the Leaf Punch, which is new, and it's in the holiday catalog. So you're just going to want to take those out of your little bag, and we're going to go ahead and do some stamping. So the colors we're going to use here are Soft Suede, Always Artichoke, Wild Wasabi, Crushed Curry, Cajun Craze. So those are the colors we're going to use here, and we're going to stamp out just the leaves and on the white circle. These circles are from the Layering Circle Framelits, and what I used were, I count these down from smallest to largest. So I used the framelit, the circle framelits, I use number 6 and number 7. So I just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this one here, and then 7 would be the second to biggest, I guess. But I always count them down smallest to biggest. So those are the sizes I used. I also used a piece of Cajun Craze cardstock. This here is cut out at 5 by 3 3/4. And then I ran it through the Big Shot with the Oh My Stars embossing folder. So you're going to get this already embossed. You're going to see that the stars are raised on one side and de-embossed on the other. The de-embossed side is the side I use. You can use either one. I just liked this one better. So we're going to go ahead and put that on top of our A2 card base. So you can use Fast Fuse. So you just want to go ahead and put that on your card base right now. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your burlap ribbon that you get. You're going to find the center of your card. So you're using the stars kind of as a guide. And then once you get it where you want it, right in the center, you're just going to wrap this around so that it sticks just like so. And then you're just going to apply it to the front of your card base. And you kind of just give it a nice little white border, kind of put it in the middle there. So it should look something like that. Then we're going to set this aside and we're going to do our stamping. So we'll stamp out our leaves first. You're going to use your Wild Wasabi for your base leaf, which is the leaf that is more filled in. So just like with the ferns, you'll have your piece that looks more solid and then the one that looks more like you can see the leaves on there. So we're going to use the more solid piece first to stamp these out. And if you have this leaf punch, it is a lot easier to punch or to stamp and then punch out your leaves, but I'm giving you the pieces, so you have to just work with the pieces. And it's not so hard. So you just want to go ahead and ink that up with your Wild Wasabi. And then just kind of lay it on top of your leaf. And you can see, you'll be able to see it fairly well. And you just want to do that on all 3 of your leaves. So once you have the base stamped, now you're going to take your Always Artichoke ink pad, and we're going to use the second step to that leaf, and you're just going to kind of line it up again and stamp it right on top. So once you have them done, we're going to stamp out the sunflower next. Now you're going to take your white circle and we're going to stamp out the sunflower. So you're going to take the base of the sunflower, which is the one that is more filled in, and you're going to use crushed curry for this one. I'm just going to get my foam mat. You don't need the foam mat, but it does help with the photopolymer stamps. So I'm just going to stamp this kind of in the center of the circle. You're going to take your top layer of that sunflower, you're going to stamp it with Cajun Craze right on top of your crushed curry. And again, you don't have to worry about really lining it up. You just want to make sure you get your center circles kind of the same. There's no right or wrong way to stamp this. So there it is with two stamps on it. But I love to go back and put the bottom layer stamp back, stamp that out again. It just gives it so much more. Like you'll see it here, this looks great. This looks really, really nice. But if you go back and you take that bottom layer again and just stamp it on top, you'll see what, in a minute you'll see. It just gives it so much more depth to it. So that's what I like to do. Again, you guys do whatever you want to your card. I'm just giving you a basic idea. And the next thing we're going to stamp is the center of your sunflower. And I'm using soft suede. And just kind of line that up in the center. And there's your sunflower. And if you didn't want it that dark, use a lighter color, or do stamp it off the paper once and then stamp it on your flower. So the next thing you're going to do is we're going to take our leaves, and I'm going to use liquid mono glue for this. And what I did was I just took it on the stems, just put a little bit of the glue on each of these stems of the flowers. And then I just kind of flipped my flower over, and I put two of the stems on one end, and then the other stem kind of across from it, just like that. So you'll get it looking like this. The next thing you do is take your wild wasabi circle and just use some snail adhesive or fast fuse on it. And I slipped this underneath the burlap ribbon, kind of found the center of the card. And then this here, what you're going to use for this is glue dots. And I just took on my ribbon here, I just put a bunch of glue dots down. So I want to make sure it doesn't come off. I don't know, I took maybe four glue dots, 4 or 5. So once you have your glue dots on, just figure out which way you want this flower to go. And then that's your second card. And it's nice because it kind of pops up your card without even using any pop-up dots or anything. So it gives it a little bit of dimension by doing it that way. So we're moving on to our last card, which I think is my favorite out of all these cards. I love them all, but I think this one's my favorite. So you'll have your Berry Burst, which is an A2 size card. Again, 5.5 by 4 1/4. You'll have a piece of Smoky Slate and a piece of Whisper White. The Smoky Slate is 5 1/4 by 4, and the Whisper White is 5 by 3 3/4. And then you're also going to see a piece of vellum in here with the Everyday Label Punch. You also will have 2 of the smaller gold faceted gems in here for this card. So we're going to go ahead and fold our Berry Burst card base. Again, use your bone folder to give it that nice crease. Then you're going to take your Smoky Slate And we're just going to glue that to the top. Again, snail adhesive or fast fuse. Your liquid mono will work, any kind of adhesive. And you're just going to make sure you give it a nice little frame around the card. And then you're going to take your Whisper White. We're going to set this aside. And we're going to do some stamping on this. So the colors we're using, there's only 3 here. We're going to use Smoky Slate, Basic Black, and Berry Burst. So the first color we're going to use is the Smoky Slate. And again, I'm going to take my foam mat down and do the stamping. So we're going to use the base of the sunflower, the portion that is filled in. And we're going to stamp randomly these sunflowers. I kind of did like 3 on one side and 2 on the other. So what I'll do is I'll start first in kind of maybe a corner. I think I'm going to line it up this way because it's going to go this way on our card. So I'm going to set it this way, and I'm just going to start stamping. So I'm going to kind of stamp one here in the corner. Then I'm going to kind of stamp one right about here, kind of off the side a little. And then another one down here in the corner. So it kind of sort of looks something like this. So you have your, where you're going to put all your sunflowers. Now I'm going to take my Berry Burst, and I'm going to stamp over the top of all of these with the top layer of that sunflower, the more detailed layer. And then you're going to take your bottom layer again, and we're going to do the Smoky Slate on top one more time. That kind of mutes the Berry Burst. So if you like this, the way it looks, then leave it. You don't have to do the second layer. I like the more muted look. So and then you're going to take Basic Black and stamp that out in the center on each of your flowers. With the center of the sunflower, you can do full black on there, which I did on some of these here, you can see. And then I think I'm going to do them all like this, but they're going to be pretty dark if you do it full black with the ink on here. But if you take your ink, once you ink it up, stamp it off to the side once, and then stamp it in the center of your flowers, it's going to be a little less black. And I didn't line that one up very well. So just make sure you're being careful with the, see, that one's much better. It's a little bit harder when you're not standing up and you have your head over the top of them. That's kind of bugging me, so I'm just going to stamp over it again. There we go. So that's the front of that. I just love those color combos. This stamp set, there's so many different color combos you can do. You don't have to be traditional sunflower colors. So then what I'll do is I'll just take a wet wipe and just kind of rub over the top of that to get that off of there. Then I'll just flip it over to do the rest of my stamping. The only stamping we have left to do is our vellum. So you just want to make sure if you have ink on your hands to get that ink off, or it's going to stain your vellum. So I'm just going to go wash my hands real quickly. So now that my hands are all clean, I'm not going to stain this. I'm going to pull this right out of the bag here. And I'm going to take my Emboss Buddy and just rub that over the top. We're going to do some embossing on here, so you're going to need clear emboss powder. Just be careful you don't bend it like I just did. So what you're going to need is your Versamark ink and your Berry Burst. So you're going to, we're going to use the sentiment, your kindness means so much more than you will ever know. So with this technique, you can emboss any color that you want. All you need to do is stamp your stamp in the Versamark ink first, and then stamp it in your color, whichever color you're going to use. And then you're just going to stamp that down. Then you're going to take your clear emboss powder, and I just have a scrap piece of paper here to catch all the powder. So then I'll just take this and shake off as much of that emboss powder as you can, and then I take the back and just give it a good flick, and then that pretty much gets rid of the rest of your emboss powder. So then you're just going to heat this up and emboss this. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure I get rid of my powder. Once you have that embossed, you're going to hold it with your fingers or tweezers. You just got to be careful you don't burn your fingers. So if you have a pair of tweezers, it's probably better on a little piece like this. We're just going to take this piece here and we're going to glue it to the front of our card. So I'm just using some snail adhesive. You can use whatever kind of adhesive you would like. And I want my card to open this way. So I want my sunflowers to kind of lay like this. So you just kind of put it around the your smoky slate, and so it gives it a nice little frame. So you're just going to use 2 of the mini dimensionals right there on the back side here. And we're just going to peel these off, and you just figure out where you want to put this. So I just put mine right here on the bottom. You could put it here. You could put it wherever you want. I just like it here on the bottom. So I'm just going to put that right there. And then you'll see, you can see those dimensionals. That's where these little guys come in that you will get in your kit. And you just put these right on top. They already have their glue on them. So just put them right on top of the dimensional and it hides it. So that's the last card in the card club. I hope you guys enjoyed this month's card club. Thanks for watching.